The goal of the PEAK Criteria video series is to help you better understand and navigate the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability Services Person-Centered Care Framework and Expectations. KDAD's PEAK criteria were developed from evidence-based practice research. That means the framework includes practices that are proven to work. So let's start with what is person-centered care. If we were in the room together and I asked the group to do a quick call out of your own personal definition of person-centered care, we'd find a lot of similar thoughts on the subject. But where we see some major differences is if I asked for some examples of what person-centered care looks like in real life. Then we'd start seeing different little examples, but a lot of differences in how we apply it to what we do every day. And so because of this, that's why this framework is so important as we begin our work so that we're all on the same page. And it's also why there are a lot of barriers, specifically cognitive barriers, that we have to address first. So when we think about what is cognition, it's about the process of knowing, perceiving, and remembering. So a barrier is anything that gets in the way of those things, like disinterest, being distracted, preconceived ideas, previous experience, and feelings and attitudes about the subject. So all of these things can come into play. So I thought I'd use an example that's not related to person-centered care to help us kind of get in this headspace. So at K-State, there's an architectural history class, and the professor at a teaching conference was talking about how hard it was for him to help his students do well on exams related to Stonehenge. And he did a lot of thinking about why is this, and did a lot of new strategies in the classroom to help improve their test taking scores, but none of it worked. So he went back to basics and just asked the students, what do you know about Stonehenge, before he taught them anything about it. And it turns out that this word cloud shows some of the things he learned from them about what they already knew. And I'm going to highlight a couple for you here. The word believe stands out, mystery, and aliens. So what this told him is students came in with some ideas that this wasn't a man-made structure. This has some mystery behind it. So when he was able to call that out to the students and talk about that and help them learn about it from a human-built architectural piece of history, it helped improve their test scores, and they did better. So I believe in the term person-centered care, we also come up against some barriers like this. And I'm going to use the bib as an example. This is a pretty commonly recognized institutional practice to use bibs, and it's gone by the wayside. When I'm in a room of people and I say, does anybody here use bibs anymore? The resounding answer is absolutely not. We use clothing protectors. But I always ask, how are they different? They look the same, right? They look pretty similar here. They have the same functionality, but there's a different name. So we haven't actually gone away from using bibs. We're just calling them something different. We're calling them clothing protectors. So with person-centered care and its implementation through PEAK, we aren't talking about labeling what we're doing something different. We're talking about doing what we do differently. So it's not just about relabeling what we're already doing, it's about changing our practices. And so rather than using clothing protectors and mass distributing them to all of our elders, what we could do if we were changing our practice is offer alternatives like cloth napkins or disposable napkins in the place of bibs, and then work individually with elders who might have a need for more coverage while they're eating. With an individual approach rather than that blanket practice. So what you're embarking on with changing the culture of your organization is more than a relabeling, it is changing some of our practices. And so this will be a journey. It won't happen overnight. So one of the things that's important as we go on that journey is to be on the same page about what this change looks like. And that's what the criteria through PEAK will help you to do. So the definition of person-centered care that KDADS has laid out is on your screen here. It's a philosophy that changes the focus of caregiving from accomplishing tasks to emphasizing the person. What is important to the resident? As a result, the personal preferences of residents become as important as providing the services and supports they need. Person-centered care requires a shift in an organization's values and beliefs about what quality care is. Nursing care is important, but equally important is a person's psychosocial well-being. So I may get my meds and have no skin tears, but if my life has no meaning, then what's the point? So it goes beyond operational changes like just dining changes or bathing programs. It's comprehensive. It looks at our whole organizations, and it's something we do because it's the right thing to do. It's a hard thing. These are all just pieces of that bigger quality picture. So PEAK creates this framework for person-centered care to guide your implementation. This helps your team be on the same page. So the PEAK criteria is divided into 4 different domains, the first of which is resident choice, and one that many of the staff members get most excited about because it's about elders directing their own lives. Promoting choice is the most basic and essential principle of person-centered care. What we're talking about here, though, is real choice. And it's not being allowed to pick from options predetermined by us. It's not regimented by us. It is having the power to determine elders' own choices and options. For instance, my grandpa liked to have a grapefruit every morning with his breakfast. For Grandpa, if the breakfast buffet did not include grapefruit in the fruit bowl, he'd be very disappointed. It wouldn't matter if there were 10 other types of fruit in it. He wanted a grapefruit. The choices that you offer should reflect the elders' preferences. You should have in your home, in your fruit bowl, what the elders that live with you today want in their fruit bowl, not just the options that were available through Cisco. It is the power to make your own decisions, both good or bad. We accept risk as a normal part of life. How many of us can say that we don't do anything bad for us? Well, elders are similar to us. So that's the framework for resident choice. For staff empowerment, this is about direct care staff being empowered to support elders in the decisions that they make. The goal is to keep the decisions as close to the elders as possible. Direct caregivers know the elders. For instance, Margaret calls out for her deceased husband every night around dinner time. Through talking to her family, direct caregivers found out that this was the time that her husband usually came home from work for dinner. He was a mechanic. Staff learned to ask her about her husband and get her to determine where he might be. Direct care staff was able to pass this on, and all staff were able to assure her that her husband was safe and well fed, which was really important to her. Then she stopped worrying about him. Empowered direct caregivers have latitude and authority to support an elder's decision on the spot. They aren't required to run basic decisions up the flagpole. They understand they're expected to support elder decisions. They know they will be supported by leaders in the organization. They understand what is expected of them. Staff also have access to information necessary to support elders' decisions. For instance, maybe an elder wants to go out and get something to drink at Sonic. Empowered staff would either be able to do a couple of different things. They could go get that drink from Sonic for the elder and bring it back. Work with their team and figure out what coverage is needed for that to happen, or they could go schedule an appointment with transportation for that elder so they could go out and get it themselves. And they would know the steps to do that because they were empowered to do so. Staff also have the necessary training and flexibility to respond to elders' needs. Direct care staff are valued and involved. It includes professional development opportunities. Direct care staff are able to participate in decisions affecting their work. When we're making organizational decisions that change how we do things, direct caregivers are right there at the table helping make those decisions. Consistent staffing is also addressed in the staff empowerment domain because it is better to know a lot about a few people rather than a little about a lot of people. Home environment is the other domain. The built environment is recognized as the elder's home, and resident comfort is honored over staff convenience. This speaks to creating home rather than a workplace. It should be homey and comfortable. It goes beyond buildings and furnishings. When creating elder environments, when we focus on that, we should include true privacy and control, supporting choices for solitude, personalization of living space, and promoting and accommodating self-care and independence. And the final domain is meaningful life. This is about elders having opportunities and assistance to pursue what gives their life meaning. It doesn't speak to traditional activity calendar. It doesn't refer to spending our time, but it's about making life meaningful. It changes the focus from activity programs to community life. How do I want to spend my day? What's my personal routine? What gives me pleasure? We aren't always entertained moment to moment. We all need to do things that matter to us. Elders need opportunities to contribute, to participate in community decisions and help other people, and also maintain their ties with their family and friends and the outside community. So within these 4 areas, there are 12 different cores that really dig into the practices that are involved in each of these areas. So these cores include under resident choice, food, sleep, bathing, and daily routines. And then under staff empowerment, it's relationships, which captures the consistent staffing piece, decision-making resident care, decision-making staff work and career development. Then under home environment, we're looking at the resident bedroom and the resident use space or community areas of our home. And then meaningful life is supporting the human spirit and community involvement. So these are the areas that as a team, you'll begin working on and digging into the practices within these to implement. So we're thinking about working on some of these core areas. For instance, maybe I saw on that list consistent staffing, and that sounded like an exciting one to work on. These are the areas that you'll begin working on towards the end of this foundation year. So I encourage you, don't rush. You're going to learn about these in the videos that are coming up, and you'll get excited that, oh, I can see that really working in our home. And we don't want to discourage you from doing that, but we do want you to do this in a way that engages your organization so that you can be positioned for the best success you can have. And so we will help walk you through a process where you engage your whole organization in selecting the cores to work on. And out of that list of 12, you can select cores in any order that you want. So there's no requirement on you must do so many out of resident choice first, or you have to pick one out of each domain. Nope, you can pick any core in any order that you want. We do recommend that you select the relationships core, which is consistent staffing, early on in your work, because that particular core has impact on a lot of different areas. And in fact, the sleep core, in order to pass that one, you must have consistent staffing in place. And so we usually encourage homes to select relationships early on in your work and sleep later on in your work for those reasons, because we want to see you be successful. And that's a stepping stone sort of practice for you. So don't rush and get in a hurry, and work through the process. Trust the process, so to speak. And as you begin completing your work, there are lots of resources on the PEAK website that I want to draw your attention to. You can find the PEAK criteria on the website that then you can print off and make as many copies of as you want. The core considerations is a resource that helps explain the criteria. So it's not just here's what it is, it's here's some ideas of some best practices and some further explanation about it that might be helpful to you. There are also some core area audits, which leads you through a process exactly like our evaluation process that we do to see where you're at with that core, what practices you're meeting and which ones you're not. So it's a great opportunity to help you prepare for evaluations, but also to see where you're at with these practices, because likely you're doing some of these things already, and then there's some things that you aren't doing yet. So the core area audits will help you identify that. And if on any of these resources, you're not sure how to use them, that's what we're here for, and we can help you discern that. There's also a page that's dedicated to person-centered care resources. So there's a lot of different specific things around different practices that might be helpful to you. Peak also does a monthly podcast called At Home, and there's some really great subjects on there that you can tune into. So if you're specifically looking for a certain topic, you might check out the podcast and it could be there. And mentor homes are also another great resource for your teams. They're always eager to help. And so reach out and connect with your mentor homes as you begin your work. So then the videos to come will help us learn more specifically about each of the cores we talked about in those domains. So stay tuned.